Hey guys, it's Chris. Thanks for stopping by. If you smack your handlebars on a tree or hit a big bump and the handlebars kind of try and wrestle their way out of your hands, this little guy can be a huge lifesaver. It's a steering dampener. I'm going to install it today, so stick around. That's right, nothing worse than getting tangled up because you hit something you didn't see, especially if you're traveling with some good speed. Steering dampener can be a huge lifesaver, especially if you're racing. So some of the key pillars, as a reminder, I want the bike to be less effort, carry more speed. I want to stay out of trouble easier. I want to be less tired over the course of the day. I want the bike to be more reliable and get better traction. These are all key things that I'm going to address as I do the build out on the 250X. Steering dampener is an important piece of that because it allows you to be less tired, hit more things, not get off balance, provides a little more stability so you can carry more speed, and the bike is just less taxing to ride, especially if you're racing. What I like to do as far as the ergonomics of the bike, which leads to less tiredness, is also raise the bar, raise the seat, and have a bigger sort of triangle for the ergonomics between the handlebars, the seat, and the foot pegs. So part of that is I can hit two birds with one stone by adding an under handlebar mount for my steering dampener. So that's what I'm going to install today. I've got a Scott steering dampener, but these are available in a variety of different brands. I'll give you some links in the information below. I've been using this little guy for a number of years. Every 2 or 3 years, I send it back to Scott's. They rebuild it, put fresh fluid in it, new seals, and it comes back good as new. So an excellent investment. You can move from bike to bike, no problem. This installation kit comes with everything you need. It's got a drill in here and a tap and screws to get everything settled in. So you've got your pin that will ultimately connect to the steering dampener. So we're gonna have to take a few things apart here, take the triple clamps off, number plate, and we're gonna have to get this pin situated because that's the pin that's gonna really integrate with the steering dampener. So I'll walk you through step by step so you see exactly what's involved. So let's get after it. Go ahead and get this number plate off of here. While I have the number plate off the bike, I'm also going to cut off the top, which I feel like this doesn't really serve the purpose. And once I put the underbar mount, I'm gonna add about 1 inch to the bars. This is just gonna kind of get in the way. So I'm just gonna take some tin snips and trim this around and maybe file it a little bit to just clean it up. While I still have everything bolted together, I'm gonna get this undermount put in place, and then I'm gonna loosen off the triple clamp, take the triple clamp out of the way, and then we're gonna drop the post on here after we clean up a couple of little bumps, casting bumps on the top here of the steering head. And so these are held on with 17mm nuts. Once we have these on here, I'm going to be able to take the bottom part of the clamp, spin it around so that it's a little bit forward, or spin it this way where this is all the way back. So that's got 2 positions. And as you might expect, all of the fasteners in this setup are going to get some blue Loctite. So we start with the large bolts that are in the kit, come in from underneath, and the undermount itself is threaded. And the bolts are also 17mm, just like the stock nuts were. And because there's not a ton of room in here for the actual ratchet, I'm going to use a articulating connector on that socket. Okay, the next step for this setup is to decide whether the bars are going to go in the rear position or in the front position. And as you can see, that just sticks out about 1/4 inch. Rolling these forward actually makes it a little easier to stand up and lean forward. So the forward position is definitely what I prefer because I need to bend over less in order to stand, and standing should be a good part of negotiating tough terrain. And those are 8mm Allen head bolts. Next up, I'm going to loosen off the steering head nut and then undo the triple clamp and pull that out of the way so we can set up the post, which is going to sit over top of that. And in order for it to sit properly, we need to make sure that that can slide on without running it into any bumps. And there's a couple of bumps you can see and feel right here that we're going to want to file a little bit to make sure they're not getting in the way of that sitting all the way down on the steering head. So the nut on the steering head there is 1¼ inch is the socket that I'm using, but I think that converts to a 32. I'll put it on the screen. There's that. All right, with the triple clamp all loosened off at the top here, I'm gonna hit it with a rubber mallet. All right, so part of this, as we talked about, is this coming down and settling cleanly right on here. It feels really close, and it only overhangs these two bumps by just about, not even, probably 1/16 of an inch. So not much needs to happen in terms of filing. Okay, that's pretty soft material, so that goes really quickly. Okay, so that looks and it feels smooth. So that certainly feels like it's all the way down. Then the next piece that we're gonna have to do, we're gonna use the drill bit that's included in the kit to tap into the frame 2 screws that are gonna stabilize this and give it some strength in addition to the clamping screw that's out front. Okay, so the objective is to come in at a perpendicular angle to the bracket that hangs down here. So I want the drill to be basically an angle, something like that. So for the first one, there's no problem attacking that one straight off. The second one, I'm gonna wrap this with plastic so that I have a clearer shot here. So a plastic lunch bag should be strong enough just to keep I don't just want any debris to fall in there. To make sure that the drilling doesn't move this, I'm gonna clamp this right now. So I tighten that quite snug, pretty much as snug as I can get it with a tiny little Allen key. And then included in the kit is a center punch so that we can help that drill bit to start. All right, with those 2 holes drilled, we're gonna now tap the holes. So the tap itself is included in the kit, but the actual, I don't know what you call this, driver or whatever it is, I had. So if you don't have that, you have to bear that in mind. So that's super easy to thread that hole. So that's threaded. We've got 2 Allen head machine screws that are gonna go in there to put a drop of Loctite on them. And you just need to be super careful you don't strip them because the aluminum is not very thick. So the amount of force to pinch it down, as long as it's even, because each time you tighten one, the other one gets a little looser. So I just go back and forth, quarter turn each one. And once I feel like it gets a lot of resistance, I'm just gonna stop. And from a T-handle perspective, it's kind of nice because depending on the size of the T-handle, pretty much if the T-handle starts to flex, I know I'm tight enough. And then as a last check, I'm just gonna double check and make sure this is as tight as I can make it. Part of this setup is gonna mean not have easy access to where I normally send the gas line to, so I'm gonna get a breather, add the breather that terminates just 2 inches above the gas cap. When I'm all said and done, I will do as most of you do, which is loosen off the triple clamps, apply the front brake, pump the forks up and down a little bit, and make sure these are all straightened out so that we make sure that the forks are not binding and that they're parallel all the way down. But for the moment, I'm just gonna get this back together the way it is right now. And 6mm Allen wrench. And then for the final piece, I'm gonna add the Scots. So when I dry fit the Scots, I've got about 1/8 of an inch clearance underneath there so that if the unit itself won't be rubbing against the post, but there's lots of good contact with the post. So the post sticks up probably 1/4 of an inch beyond the actual arm that's under here, and it's still plenty of clearance so that it doesn't rub. So I'm good with the height of that post. So I'm just gonna put a light film of grease. All right, so I added a thin film of grease on the post, but I wanna make sure there's no extra grease anywhere around here because it's gonna attract dirt. All right, so that's tight now. All right, guys, so that's it for the install on the steering dampener. I now can feel comfortable that if that front wheel gets slammed into something or I hit a tree with my hand guard and the bars want to twist out of my hands, the steering dampener is going to help me by slowing down the movement of the handlebars. Of course, with all of these different steering dampeners, there's going to be different features, but typically you're going to have a high speed and low speed dampening to manage both types of movements. Always start with the stock settings and just deviate slightly from there as you get used to it and feel kind of how much assistance you really feel like is good for you. But really worth doing. I would recommend at every level of rider you can benefit from the steering dampener to help you stay out of trouble, be less tired, and successfully navigate more difficult situations. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If it was, smash the like, subscribe to follow along because there's lots more to do on the 250X, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.